It's the Regular Expressions podcast. Join Noah Heldman and Ben Griswold as they talk about technology, consulting, and life. In episode 22, Noah and Ben talk about utilization, also known as billability for consultants. Should they bill based on effort or value? It's me, Rachel. I charge based on tokens, so I try to get as many words as I can into these intros. If I get cut off suddenly while I'm in the middle of this, you'll know it was because...
Hey, Noah, we've been bantering a bit about time management, logging time, infinite time standstill, all that stuff.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, right. Okay. Bust out the filters there.
So I have to record a drum track for that now. Thanks a lot.
Let's do it. We built out our own app. It's really cool. It helps us, in fact, to manage time when we're doing all of our consulting pursuits. It makes us think about how working with various companies, they're always this, utilization, billability. How do you feel ethically when you're working with a customer and recognizing that maybe you are providing more value than you're charging for? Or maybe the opposite, you are providing less value than you're charging for. There's all of these dynamics. And I think over X number of years doing it, you kind of come to terms that everything balances out typically. Although I'd say that all in all, I've put in way more hours as a consultant than ever gets to be billable. Any past employers, please forgive me, but it always felt like I had to measure value to, what we were being paid. All right. So, thought it would be a great idea to just unpack that a little bit. I jumped all around because I'm excited about this topic, and we do this almost every single day. We consider how much time have we spent for a customer, how much time do you have to spend digging in, getting answers to questions in order to move forward. There's a balance there. And since we talk about it all the time, I think it might be helpful just to get into our brains a little bit for leaders that are listening, as well as maybe consultants that are obviously wrestling this all the time.
That sounds like a great topic. Happy to discuss. You called out that you've probably spent more hours than you've billed on many customers, and you also called out that it probably all balances in the end. And I can tell you, you're covered because I probably bill way more hours than I should. So there you go. Balance is there. No problem. So I'm sorry to all my past customers.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. But your point is taken. I love that when I first started working in consulting, it was called billability, and you had to be as billable as you could. That was the term. Mm-hmm. Then I went to another organization and it was utilization. And that was the term. I went to another organization and it was called chargeability. Mm-hmm. So, and then back to utilization. It's interesting how these terms are pretty interchangeable. And they all make me a little bit uncomfortable for some of the reasons you were saying. It's interesting in a services paid per hour time and materials typical situation. You have to do this. Attorneys bill by the 6-minute increment typically, and bill, I would guess, a whole lot more than we do. So good job, guys and gals who do that. That's great. So it is a psychological burden every time you enter time. If you are a person with integrity and morals, and you want to make sure you're delivering value, and that anything you are putting on paper as saying, I spent this time, should be tied to value. And sometimes you do have to spend a lot of time doing things that don't feel like they're inherently valuable, but they're absolutely necessary to get to the point where you are delivering that true outcome level type of value. So it is, it weighs on me at times. So I feel you.
Yeah, interesting you'd say it weighs on you, because you tend to, in Noah time, things tend to happen a lot faster than they actually do in reality. Right. We may be working on something. You're like, okay, so we just knocked this out in 2 hours. I'm like, Noah, we skipped lunch and it's almost dinner time. That wasn't 2 hours. And that so I think you've probably been underbilling your entire career just based on that. And I do too. I get into that zone, right? And it's just, wow,
Yes.
time flies. We love this stuff. And how do you remember what happened today? Never mind 2, 3, 4 days ago when we used to, submit our weekly timesheets. So that constant looking back and measuring, I think, is a way of keeping ourselves honest, which we just might not be able to do, and maybe not even honest, just accurate. Right. So there is, as you said, this bit of weight, and when you're tracking time, are you in fact weighing the amount that is billable, chargeable, utilized with the value that you're providing? And it's one of the classic ways is, how much learning are you doing on the customer's dime, right? There's always this, the onboarding, right? Like hopefully you have some prep between clients, let's say, and you need to really understand their domain. You need to understand their tech stack. You need to understand their overall strategy and where they're headed as a company. You've got to do your homework. If you go in day one and you click the is billable button, is it really fair to be starting from scratch right then and there? Sure, when we're going through the sales cycles, we're learning a lot as we go. The pursuits, we're learning a lot as we go. But there tends to be something, especially on those individual contributors, the consultants that are on the ground and then doing. So I'm just wondering what you think there. Like, where is that balance between learning on the job and utilization?
I'm remembering former bosses and very different approaches to this exact issue. I think my favorite approach is someone who said to our entire team, use your best judgment. If you know you're delivering something or doing something that is ultimately valuable to the customer, bill it. That's very defensible to the customer. And it does make you just take that moral checkpoint to make sure it's something that should be billed for. I've had other supervisors or people up the chain at different organizations who have the mindset of just bill everything. Were you thinking about the client when you were at lunch? Bill your lunch to the client. And I think that's incredibly dishonest. And I think a lot of companies get away with it. A lot of consultants, especially at larger firms, not to call out any of them specifically, but when you have these major multi-million, $100 million engagements, any of that ends up just being noise. And you and I tend to focus on high value, smaller team type projects where even if there's not that level of scrutiny, we know that we are measuring ourselves to ensure that we are valuable every step of the way. So specifically on the learning on the job question, it depends. Are you learning something that the customer knew you did not know and that you were transparent about when you got the gig? And did you say, hey, I'm going to need to look into this. I'm going to need to learn some stuff and I'll be billing you for that. Yep, you're good to go then. There's always things that especially in a software development type project, you're going to other sources. You're going to ask a trusted colleague for help. Back in the day, you'd go to Stack Overflow to just get the community's best answer. Now you might use AI to accelerate some learning. Whatever that is, it's all wrapped up in I'm focused on delivering value as quickly and effectively as possible for the customer, and I'm going to bill accordingly.
Yeah, that's where it's all positive intent. Like, this is what I'm striving for, best value. There's other cases where I've witnessed this. I'm probably guilty of it. It's not knowing really the direction that a customer needs to go in order to attain that value. So I'm thinking of those situations where you're researching technology X, and if you were to ask the customer, they would say, well, we tried X before. That's not going to work. We need another solution. Or you're building out a form and you're not building this together with the customer. You're not giving them early previews. So you spend weeks on end, and then here you go, end of the month, whatever that milestone is, this is what you get. And you realize you put in X number of hours, I'll say 160 hours over a month. And the customer's like, that's not what I wanted at all.
Right.
So are you, just because you're going for it and making assumptions, are you in fact wasting money and providing no value whatsoever at the end of the 160 months or 160 hours? It seems to me, yes, it coming up for air, getting confirmation, asking a few questions, it might feel like, oh, I'm wasting the customer's time, I'm burning hours, but no, you're actually saving hours in the long run.
Absolutely right. And we talk about the idea of not solutioning too early regularly. And that comes up on a smaller scale in these types of situations. So customer asks for something based on possibly great instincts from past work we've done. We might start down a path and think that it's the right solution because we've seen the problem before, so we know the solution. But it could be wrong because we don't have all the context we need. There's other limiting factors that come into play, and we could go down a path that we have to unwind and start from scratch on. So that can be dangerous. And it gets back to communication, talking to the people who need to know that you're progressing. And sometimes you do need to not only learn new skills, new technologies that are relevant to what the customer is trying to do, start solutions and maybe even finish prototypes that will not stand the test of time. So that's another communication that has to happen early. It's like, we're going to make a bet, thinking back to David Robinson and ThoughtWorks Edge. We're going to make a bet on this. We're going to start an initiative to get this done. We're going to spend 2 weeks. At the end of that 2 weeks, we're going to deliver something to the customer, show it to them. They might like it. They might not. Whatever happens, that was valuable time spent because everyone was aware of everything that was happening during those 2 weeks. Status was always available. Communication was happening. And we decided, nope, that's not going to work. So it's not quite as valuable as if you'd gotten it perfectly right the first time. But how often does that happen? You now know the value of what you do not want to do in the future. It's like, I've learned that this path is a dead end. It's like you're solving a maze and there's one exit to wild success. You might take a wrong turn and have to back up and find the right path out the maze.
Yeah, I like that. You know, our buddy Charlie, he's a measure twice, cut once type of guy. He's very thoughtful as an architect, for certain. And working with him, I used to feel like, go, please just go, implement. And it's just not the way he functions. And I'd say 9 out of 10 times he surprises me. His thoughtfulness up front. Yeah. Yes. You know, he gets all the questions answered. He goes through a couple iterations on paper. He plays it out. And then usually it's that one, maybe second time he's implementing it. It's done very thoughtfully. I think that is the bread and butter on how one should, at that individual contributor level, should really move forward when it comes to implementation of anything. And we just talked about leveraging AI tools. That's not the vibe coding approach. That's the spec-based approach of coding these days. So I just really like that whole measure once or measure twice, cut once analogy. You mentioned like transparency. You mentioned making sure that everybody's really aware of the direction that one's taking over that 2-4 week period, right? Status reports, stand-ups, etc. Some of that, though, feels like it's just a function of looking busy. It's a function of providing information that really doesn't help to recognize where you are in that providing value, right? It's like, oh, we're on track. This is really great. We talked to these people. Let's move on. I wonder if some of those meetings that we have, the unnecessary meetings, if those just fell off people's calendars, if we might get closer, because I don't think that they're all very valuable, we might get closer to that time invested, value provided. What do you think? I feel like you're on the fence sometimes with meetings.
I am, and I've gone from swinging pretty hard in one direction where I've thought no meetings are necessary. We can communicate anything we need to asynchronously and be effective if we're all using the same approach and same tools and same processes, and we have the same outlook. And as soon as I hear myself say that, it's like, oh, but that's not how real life works. There's people who function really well in meetings. There's people who don't. And if I think of the example of the status update, which drives some people nuts and some people absolutely rely on it, I think of my previous ideal vision was, here's a tool you can look at any time of the day and have an up-to-date, accurate picture of everything you care about on a perfect dashboard. It's like, that's it. If it pops into your mind, hey, how's this project going? Just go right here. There it is. All questions answered. That feels like it's been a pipe dream, and we've gotten close to it in some cases and nowhere close to it in others. But I also still think that if you have a weekly standing meeting and it's some sort of demo or a check-in or stakeholder gathering, and people consistently show up because they're the kind of people who, I have a calendar meeting and it's at 11, so I'm going to go to the meeting. Here I am. Then you have an opportunity to connect with them that you might not if they are never going to look at your dashboard, as beautiful as it may be. So it's an interesting thing. I think it's changed a lot since COVID, even though there was a lot of remote work happening prior, and I was working a lot remotely prior. But just knowing that a lot can be accomplished effectively remotely, and then we've seen a push back towards get in the office and stay in the office and be connected to people. The reality is people work differently. Generations change. So what worked for us as Gen Xers is different than what will work for Gen Z, millennials, and whatever comes next. Gen Alpha, beyond, right? Whatever happens with this next generation, they grew up with a different set of tools, capabilities. AI will be a first-class citizen in their life, the tiny kids now, which is crazy to think about. So what is a meeting to them? How do they want to find out information and know where things are at? I don't know. Tricky.
Well, let's start predicting. I've gone total different ends of the spectrum on the whole meeting thing. I think where I've felt best positioned when I had this thought that if you don't need to be in the meeting, don't be in the meeting. If you see 24 people on a Zoom or Team or whatever, and only 2 people are on video and they're having the conversation. I can't imagine that there's value there. And you've probably heard this, how after the meeting, it's like how many thousands of dollars were just burnt through just by having people on that call.
Yes.
There's the opposite. There's another side of it, which is, how if people aren't on the call and they need to know about things, there's that extra time to make sure that the game of telephone is actually played well after the call. So I think I might open it up a little bit, but I don't like it when there's dozens of people on a call. I do find that still wasteful. Love to have meetings though. And I love, as you said, it's an opportunity to ask those questions in a time boxed amount of time and go over too, just to make sure there's appropriate clarity and expectations are set. I think just because it's on paper when you sign the contract or you start a sprint or whatever, you have to keep coming back to that helmet in. And why not? Like what you were suggesting is when you know it's not working, shift gears. When you know it's right, push forward really fast.
Totally right. I thought of a specific use case for billability utilization that I know you and I used to deal with when we were doing much more active software development work, and that we're dealing with in a little bit of a different way now. And I'm curious about your thoughts on this. So back in the day, not even that long ago, when you're working on a complex system, you have your build and deploy cycle. You are writing code, writing unit tests, hopefully. Oh, remember writing code? That was a thing we used to do.
Yeah.
And you would commit to GitHub, you'd have someone review your PR, and it would kick off this build and deployment cycle. Or you were using a compiled language, so you had to build locally. You're running .NET or Java, and it wasn't just instant. I make a change and my browser page refreshes instantly, and I can see what's happening. You had to run through a build process, and it took a little while. And I think we all just assumed, of course, that's billable time. We're sitting there waiting for it to finish. Hopefully we're doing something else if it's just running and we're not just sitting there staring at the ... moving across the screen. But you're working on that project, and it's just a necessary cost for doing that work. Now we have AI, and you can kick an AI agent off to go do something for you. It's still pretty quick, but it might take a few minutes. Is all of that time billable? What's getting back to the psychology and the value? How does that feel?
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to use just another use case and see if there's an arc here.
Yeah.
I'm one of those weirdos that likes building out PowerPoint decks, Google Slides. Right? I tend to think that they need to be really pretty for any of the content to be valuable. So I'll be laying them out as lovely as I can. Putting in that time to a PowerPoint deck, does that make a lot of sense? At the end of the day, tell me the information, make sure that you can articulate on it when you're presenting, and you're done. It seems to me that that's an inefficiency that I could home in. I could get to the 80% and everything is good. I could now use tools like Gamma that gets me 90% of the way in producing those presentations. And what an amazing tool it is. When it comes to builds, when it comes to reviews and time sinks, I'd like to think that that's just another area where efficiencies can be put in place. So that time, obviously there's value, right? On the side of it, you're producing some code, you're deploying it, you're testing, et cetera, right? There's value on the other side of this, but can you shrink that down? Because then it becomes the time versus value. That ratio is improved. Oh, I would just look in that case for, and we do that, we're talking back to putting our engineering hats on. We were constantly doing that. We didn't want to be in the spot where we were waiting. But it's a cost that's required, right? It's the same cost as when you work with an organization and they issue you a VDI, and the performance on that VDI is so poor, you just see the progress spinning and it drops, and you're with help desk, and it's horrible experience, and everything about your day is painful, and you're certainly not producing what you want. It's just an inefficiency that you need to navigate as we're talking, like with the engineer hat on.
It's a really awesome call out, and I haven't thought of that in a bit. And I think the way my brain works, it's jumping around a lot. I have thoughts that are very fast, and that's as great as that is at times. It's also a little bit dangerous because I can move too quickly through something. With VDIs, it really is handcuffs for me, because I can't let my brain operate at the speed it wants to by default.
Sure.
And that's worse than just being slow. It breaks up any consistent train of thought I would have. Mm-hmm. So it's probably creating way more of a problem than just it's a little slow, because it's actually chopping up my train of thought and my ability to be effective. There are other people who I've worked with who are just slower paced and more thoughtful about how they go through this exercise. And a VDI might be a little bit of a frustration because they think faster than that. but not so much faster by default that it's going to break up their thought process. So
Sure.
I think someone who naturally thinks slower would be more effective on a VDI than I would, because it's just like, what? I don't even know what to do. My brain stops working when I'm on a VDI. So I'm glad I haven't had to do that in years, many years.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Not in years, but there was a time when it was tough to get tools in organizations, right? Running really lean. Any purchase was really looked at as, is this necessary? And looking back and what we do today, we put money into our tools. We put money into products that really make us more efficient. And that's on our dime, right? That's not a cost that we're passing along. Super valuable for our customers, for us to be using the tools that we do. And it allows like your brain, my brain to move quickly. There isn't the context switching. There isn't that, oh, well, this is running so slowly, I better go grab another cup of coffee. So yeah, super amazing investment into tools and tools above learning. I know learning is always on the top of my list, getting various products to support that. A tool or two can make a world of difference in morale as well as your, I want to say output, but really I'll say outcomes. Okay.
Yes, you have to. It's all value, Ben. That's totally true. I agree with you 100%. As we get to the end of our episode here, as we cross the 26-minute mark, I have to ask you one more incredibly important question. Which customer are you going to bill this 30-minute podcast to?
I am not going to log this time. I will very likely send multiple thank yous to you for producing the podcast after this, and thank you for not billing me.
Well, maybe that's it, because this was your idea to get this podcast on the books today. I'll bill you for the production, half an hour, and you bill me for joining the podcast, and it'll all wash out in the end.
I love it. All right, let's hit the books.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ben.
All right, see ya.
Bye.